Are you ready for some good news? To be free doesn't just mean that you have been brought out of spiritual slavery. It means that you have been adopted as children of God. The image that we see today is a move from spiritual slavery to becoming spiritual heirs. We're learning about freedom in a series that we've called Unleashed, because it stands in contrast to so much of the world's notions of what freedom is. And I love the image of the dog who is so well trained and so submitted that the master can let the dog off of the leash and run free, knowing that the dog will always return. Only the submitted, well-trained dog can go unleashed. And what we're discovering is that it's not through some rebellion against all authority that we find freedom, but it is in submission to God who loves you so much. And what looks like a very narrow gate opens up to expansive, spacious life. And that the move is really not just from an absence of a slave master, but it is a move to, as Paul said, being a slave to righteousness. And today, this beautiful, beautiful image of adoption. Some years ago, I remember kind of a harrowing scene that at first it was surreal. I was actually riding in the car with Bennett, and I was driving along on the highway. And all of a sudden, I saw in the way distance behind me, bunch of blue lights. And I thought, I'm going to get over to the right. I'm just going to kind of slow down here. Something is happening. And very soon thereafter, a car came zigging and zagging and just flying down the highway, weaving in and out of traffic, and a host of police cars coming after it. And I was witnessing a real-life, high-speed chase, like a scene out of some movie, and I just backed off, like, concerned that there might be a wreck coming up or something. And so I knew we'd seen it. The next day in the paper, I read about it, and this young man had been arrested. They caught him, and they arrested him for a bank robbery. And I saw that young man. I saw his face as he was driving in the car. I saw that look on his face. And I don't think I'll ever forget it, that angst of I violated the law and now the authorities are after me. And I didn't know anything about that young man except I knew this, that he had no hope for his life. I mean, not just saying he had no hope because now he'd been caught by the police in a big crime. I mean, he didn't have hope before that. He didn't have whatever that is that makes you feel like an heir rather than an orphan. And so he was having to steal. He was having to try to make a way. He had no peace. And now he's just on the run. And what a picture of a spiritual reality for so many people. And here's the truth and the beauty of the gospel. God came in the person of Jesus Christ to set us free. And the way that he came to set us free is that at first, Jesus takes our place on the cross and pays the penalty for our sin so that we could be forgiven. But he does this not just so we can be forgiven and one day that we can go to heaven, but he does this so that we could be adopted as heirs. And when Paul is speaking in Romans chapter 8 about adoption, he is using an image that would have been absolutely familiar to any of his readers in the first century. And when you're an heir, everything shifts, therefore. Instead of a slave who lives by fear of losing out or not having or being punished, the heir is living in a love relationship with a father who, yes, may discipline, yes, has authority, but does so from a position of great love. In the end, God's your father, and it doesn't just mean that he's your provider. It doesn't just mean that he's your teacher or your disciplinarian. It means he's the one who shares his life with you. His heart. What matters is, I love you because you're my son. Welcome. In the end, that's who God is to you. Yes, he provides. Yes, he's a wonderful teacher. Yes, he guides you. Yes, But who he is, beloved, is your Father. And you in Christ, his son, his daughter. That's real freedom. And that's the gospel.